About 30 years ago, the aftermath of a basketball match taught me two lessons. One about individual leadership and the other about institutionalizing good leadership environments. I was a newly minted lieutenant, barely a month into service, posted in Sangrur, then a remote town of Punjab. Our unit had just won the Brigade Basketball Championship, which was followed by enthusiastic celebrations as such occasions often merit. 3 of the 5 members of the winning team were from my platoon, and they rushed up to me immediately after the match, requesting for an outpass, which is basically a short leave of absence, usually given to soldiers whose homes are nearby. Since it was beyond my authority to grant it, I headed over to my company commander's house for his approval. Quite sure that the major would agree. After all, we had just won the brigade championship, and it was largely thanks to these 3 soldiers. When my commander asked me their names and the reasons for outpass for each one, I narrated what they had told me. 2 of them had a sick family member and the third had a legal dispute. The major stared at me for a few moments and then abruptly denied the request. I was stunned. Here I was after rigorous training at the academy with wide-eyed dreams of commanding a platoon, and I couldn't even grant 2 days of outpass to my troops under my very command. As I walked out dejectedly and informed the 3 soldiers waiting expectantly with their bags packed that their outpass had been denied, I felt completely powerless, demoralized and actually humiliated. Later that evening, I was at the officers' mess when a waiter informed me that my company commander was on the premises and he had called me to the bar. So although I was sulking, it was a summon and I had no option but to go. As soon as I entered the bar, the major told the barman to pour me a drink. Since I was still in that sulking mode, I mumbled a denial. But that's when my company commander taught me 2 very valuable lessons, both of which are worth their weight in gold. He said the bar is a hallowed space where any junior officer can speak his mind to the senior as if he were drunk, even if he is a teetotaler. And he said only 3 things can happen. Either I will convince you that I was right, or you will convince me that you were right, or there's a third possibility that both of us will disagree, but because the buck stops at me, it is my prerogative to pull rank on the decision. However, this drink will be on me, so that when we both walk out from this bar, we bury our differences behind us. Your dissent will be noted, but you will put in your 100% behind my decision. He then proceeded to inform me that all the 3 soldiers who had asked me for an outpass were in fact first cousins who wanted to attend the marriage of yet another distant cousin in their village. Had they managed to wangle the outpass based on their lies, I would have been the laughing stock of the battalion. I would have been seen as a rookie taken for a ride by his troops. And he then added the second lesson: better do your job and get to know your troops before becoming a rebel without a cause. While I am not advocating a bar, corporate cultures also need rituals and hallowed spaces where juniors can disagree with seniors, advocate outlandish ideas, and challenge status quo without the fear of adverse consequences. Large process-driven organizations have many spaces for conferring, discussions, debates, and intense competition, but almost no channel to diffuse toxic situations, enable camaraderie, or allow a sense of humor. It's a paradox that organizations create outcome-oriented metrics to pit leaders against leaders, region against functions, one against the other, and almost a fratricidal rivalry, and yet expect them to collaborate. Perhaps this is also the result of an education system that teaches students to be hyper-competitive throughout their schooling and then expects them to cooperate at the end of it. In a world that requires creativity and constant innovation to retain a competitive edge, building institutions and creating rituals of psychological security is not a nice-to-have luxury. Instead, it is an essential practice to leverage the full potential of an employee's intellectual and emotional engagement. This is especially true in a multi-generational work environment where even subtle hints of intimidation can completely wilt ingenuity. Leaders will therefore need to shift from an authoritative style that relies purely on positional seniority to a gardener style of leadership where the job description is understood as the role of a gardener who nurtures, who is responsible for ensuring adequate nutrition, sunlight, and most importantly, the distance between plants so that one plant's growth does not stunt another's and each grows to their individual potential. And this not only requires leaders to know each of their team members closely, but also needs some self-effacing humility, a sense of humor, a sense of vulnerability, and the ability to create rituals that diffuse toxicity and foster camaraderie.